Hello fellow weebs and welcome back to another video. This is Amayo here, and today we're going to be talking about the future of One Piece. Basically what I think the story is going to go, what the direction it's going to head, what's going to happen, how certain things are going to get solved and concluded, and basically where each of the main factions in the world are going to go from this point on in the story. So when Wano Kuni first started, a lot of people had a lot of different theories about what was going to go on outside of the world. But basically, we haven't been able to see as much of that because the only time we get to see that is when we have a break between acts, and that does not happen as often, especially when Act 3 is going to be the longest act, and we're probably not going to get back to seeing the rest of the world for a long while. A lot of people thought that the Marines were going to show up or Blackbeard was going to show up, but there's still the possibility that Blackbeard is on Totland, kind of trying to take it over, doing whatever, and there are still people that will be able to defend it, like Katakuri, who's probably healed by now, and some of the other people that were left on the island that weren't able to come with them, and I believe that Cracker is still there as well, and so that pretty much could still be a plot point, and we could see the Blackbeard crew involved in other ways. Like, we obviously know that Blackbeard has information on Wano, even though it's a secluded country, so he has to have someone that's in there and getting information from the country. So that could be anyone from, like, someone in the top echelon of Orochi's forces, which could be the Mimawari Gumi, the Omi Wabanshu, any other faction, maybe even someone in Kaido's crew, some random beast pirate that we don't know, or someone that we do know, and they just might be working for someone. Or it could be someone like Katarina Devon, who is actually in disguise there. And basically, that's pretty much how the Blackbeard crew is involved in the current part of the story. And now moving on to Kaido's crew and how I think that they're going to operate in the future. By the end of Wano, I do think that Kaido is going to be either incapacitated or dead, most likely dead. Big Mom is probably going to survive, and she's probably going to continue to play a role in the story, just not as much of an important one. And we've been seeing throughout the past two arcs, basically, that Big Mom has kind of been used as like someone that's very powerful, but someone that has not been utilized, and we've kind of seen her be used in a lot of silly ways. So there's a large likelihood that Big Mom is not going to play as big of a role as throughout the story, especially when Luffy gets strong enough to defeat her, take her on, his crew gets stronger. She's going to become more and more minuscule, as we've seen throughout the story. Like in Fishman Island, she was obviously very threatening, but by the time we got to Totland, we saw that she wasn't as threatening as a creature as we had originally seen, besides her actual power, but her mentality often ends up changing things for how the situations are going to go with her. And we've seen things like her hunger pains, which obviously amplified basically her ability to want to fight, but her brain was not in the right place. Then she got amnesia, her brain once again not in the right place, and reverted to that of a 5 or 6 year old child. And basically, that's what I think is going to happen with the Big Mom crew, except for one other member that we haven't really mentioned right now, which is Perospero, who is coming back with Marco, and presumably they're going to work together at least till the end of the arc. And basically what I think was going to happen with Perospero and Marco is that Marco is probably going to finish up what he needs to do on Wano and then head back to Sphinx Island. But then Perospero, most likely, he is going to either try to seize an opportunity that he sees to either try to incapacitate or maybe even kill Big Mom as well and become like the head of his own crew. Or he's going to play more of a sideline role and kind of try to manipulate things from the shadows until he can kind of take her out. Because a lot of Big Mom's children are not as loyal as she wanted them to be, even though that was kind of the whole point of her crew, where she would have her children be there so that she could have loyal followers and they can move forward. But that doesn't seem to be the case, and a lot of them have their own like factions and alliances on feelings on her. And obviously she's not the greatest person. She even killed one of her own children because of her hunger pains. So we've seen that, and there's a possibility that even she maybe had more children in the past, but she killed them as well by accident. So not a lot of them have as much loyalty as she would have wanted, and that is probably going to play a plot point in how she eventually leaves the story and has like a less important role. And now moving on to the Beast Pirates. So basically what I think what's going to happen with them, as I stated before, Kaido is probably going to die by the end of this arc. But for other characters like the Toby Ropo and Jack and Queen and King, I think that most of them are going to stay alive. I don't know what they're going to do in the future, but I don't think that they're going to play as important as a role. And a lot of the characters in the Beast Pirates we don't really know that much about, and we've kind of been seeing Queen, and he's kind of like very much so a hit or miss. He's kind of like very serious at sometimes, very playful at other times, and basically he kind of knows the difference between his job and what he actually wants to do for fun. And basically I feel like that's going to tie into what he's going to be doing later on in the story. And if Kaido gets taken out, then he might not have as much of a focus on his job and kind of just do things that will be fun for him. And as for King and Jack, with King, I feel like of what we've seen, he has kind of more of a loyalty to Kaido, but I feel like that plot point about him being one of the last 3 mysterious races in One Piece, then he's probably going to end up with Big Mom at the end of this arc in some way, shape, or form. And then for Jack, I feel like he might also just either get taken out or just live out his life doing something else. Because as we've seen, Jack is obviously the weakest member of the 3 All-Stars, and he's probably going to get taken out again by somebody because he's gotten cucked by like everybody. So we'll probably see that in the future. Now as for the Toby Ropo, I feel like all of the members of the Toby Ropo are either just going to do their own thing, but there are more important members like Drake. And as for Drake, I feel like he is probably going to die in this arc, but he'll probably be able to relay his message to the Marines, and with that 1% chance, like that likelihood is going to skyrocket that he's going to die sometime in this arc. But I feel like he'll kind of make a connection between the Straw Hats and Sword, and maybe have them move into some kind of strange alliance to take down the current world order of the world government. And so for the other factions in the world, like Shanks, I feel like he's going to keep showing up in important moments, and maybe we'll get more exposition once Act 3 ends about what he was doing with the Gorosei there. And basically, who he probably wanted to talk about is Blackbeard. So maybe we're going to see, after this arc ends, that the Marines are going to come after they're done with the warlords, and they're going to come and try to take down a powerful Yonko in the world like Blackbeard. But Shanks is probably going to stay on the down low until the final arc, of course, where he's probably going to play an important role on what happens in Raftail and how the Straw Hats are going to deal with all the enemies that are going to be coming up there. And basically, for Blackbeard, if the Marines don't come after him, he is probably going to play like an important role in Raftail as well. And even if the Marines do come after him, maybe some of his crew base will be taken out, but he's still going to find some kind of way to escape, because we've seen like he's a sneaky man. He'll find his way to get out of whatever situation. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Black. But my thoughts on Wano moving forward is basically that we're going to finish up with this kind of whole battle scenario with Kaido, and then Act 3 is probably going to end. Act 4 is probably going to be more of a wrap up, and maybe that'll be the section where we see a lot more of the Straw Hats fight, a lot more of the Toby Ropo or the All Stars or any other opponent that they're gonna have to take out. And we might see more from someone like Jinbei, who we haven't seen much of from, obviously. Even though we've seen a lot from him, we haven't really seen him in combat that many times. And then Act 4 is probably going to end. We're going to get some more exposition, maybe on what's happening in the world, maybe what's happening with Reveiw. And then we're going to move on to the last section, which is going to be like the last, basically, saga of One Piece. And that is what I'm going to connect to what Oda said about the One Piece ending in 5 years, but what we've actually learned is that based on the translations, what they were actually saying is that One Piece, like them finding the One Piece, is actually going to end within 5 years, but then we're going to move on until what is actually going to happen to wrap up the story. And I feel like this is more truthful now, but it might take a little longer, but it's a different reason as to before, because basically Oda said a lot about how he's going to try to end One Piece within 5 years. That happened multiple times. At the beginning of the story, he said it would go on for 5 years. Then he said, once we got into the new world, that it's probably going to end in 5 years. Then in 2015, he said that again. So One Piece should have been done by now, but we all know it's not, obviously. And basically, for this last saga, I feel like it's actually going to come true, because we've seen things like Big Mom and Kaido actually saying that they're going after the One Piece, so we know that this is kind of gearing up to be the last section. And we also know that Oda's kind of like really tired of drawing this manga. I can kind of tell, like, by the way he draws, he's kind of getting more tired, and he wants to wrap this up quickly, because even if it's his baby, like, it's been 23 years, he just kind of needs to rest for a bit, and maybe he'll focus more on story and not as much as drawing the actual manga. And what's probably going to happen, like, after Wano is, what I think is basically we have Elbaf, obviously, which is probably going to involve most of the giant characters that have been involved in the story. Maybe we will even see characters like Tori and Bragi. We're probably going to see Hirudin as well. And maybe that's going to tie back into how the Grand Fleet is going to be in the last section of the story. And I think that they're going to help out at Raftail, which is probably going to be the final war, which is going to be the big war. And basically that's how their time in the story is also going to come to a close. But the thing about One Piece is that we've had a lot of characters come and go, and a lot of characters be involved, and a lot of characters that each of the individual fans want more focus on. And I really don't know how that's going to happen with all the 7 members of the Grand Fleet, all the Straw Hats, everybody else, especially in this Grand Saga. That's going to be coming to a beginning and then eventually coming to an end within probably the next 5 or 6 years. And the reason I think it may take longer than 5 years is because the amount of breaks in One Piece there slowly and steadily increasing, and there have been other factors as of late, like the virus and Oda getting sick recently, but it's probably going to be something more of like we're going to get that certain kind of time frame, which is going to be a little longer than 5 years. So after an arc focused on Elbaf, we're probably going to get an arc either more focused on the Marines or some other faction, and then we're going to kind of move into Raftail. And the thing about the opponents that Luffy's facing, because we know that there's not really going to be a stronger opponent than Kaido, and he's probably going to work in tandem with a lot of other people to defeat Kaido, but basically we need him to keep finding stronger opponents, him upgrading his own abilities, and I feel like that might happen in Elbaf because giants are obviously like very strong creatures, and we might get to see something that can even fight against the strength of the giants, but it might not be something that we expect. It might be something closer to like power of an ancient weapon or something else. And that's probably how the series is going to end soon. And that's pretty much it for the video. So if you liked, like, comment, subscribe, all that other stuff, and that's pretty much it.